Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. King of the Hill was one of the best shows on Fox. It didn't have the same insane humor that The Simpsons or Family Guy has, but that's what made it so good. It proved you didn't need to be insane and over the top in order to be funny. With the news that they're reviving the show, I decided to do 2 top 10 lists. The first one, today's video, will count down the top 10 worst episodes from the series, while the second list, next week's video, will count down the top 10 best. So let's begin. Number 10. An Officer and a Gentleboy. Once again, Hank is having a hard time with straightening Bobby out, so Cotton decides to send his grandson to an old military academy. Since the academy is nowhere near as tough as it was in Cotton's day, he decides to take over. Yet no matter what he does to Bobby, Cotton can't break him. The reason why this episode is bad is because it's hard to buy into the story. King of the Hill is always emphasizing how out of shape Bobby is. Gym is a torture for him, yet we're supposed to believe a military school is a cakewalk for him? Even if the military school isn't as tough as it was in Cotton's day, it's still a military school. You are still expected to march, to wash dishes, to do push-ups, to do obstacle courses, to do all sorts of physical activity you would expect in the military. And yet, Bobby isn't shown doing any of that. Look, I'm not speaking from experience, but I knew people who were in ROTC, and they were in way better shape than Bobby, and yet every one of them said it was difficult because of the physical demands. So Cotton, if you want to break Bobby, make him do 10 push-ups. Number 9. The Accidental Terrorist. Like An Officer and a Gentleboy, this episode expects you to ignore what you know about the character in order for the story to work. In this case, Hank Hill has been paying sticker price for cars from a salesman for the last 20 years. 20 years? We're supposed to believe that someone as car savvy as Hank paid sticker price for 20 years? Did he do no research? Did he talk to nobody else? Didn't he discuss it with his best friends? Or his father? The writers try to get around this by saying that Hank never told anybody, but I call bullshit on that. Don't you think he would have bragged to his friends about the great price he got? Or maybe recommend this guy to his buddies? I know Hank can be naive. When he first met Khan, he asked him if he was Chinese or Japanese, as if they were the only Asian countries. That joke works because he is ignorant about the world outside the US. Cars, on the other hand, is something he knows about. That's why this episode made the list. Number 8. Blood and Sauce. Bill has only one relative alive. His obviously gay cousin, Gilbert, who sold off the family property without giving Bill a cut. I question what became of his one female cousin, since she was about the same age as them, but I digress. Everybody loves Bill's family barbecue sauce, and some important businessmen are interested in buying the recipe. Gilbert, on the other hand, forbids his cousin from selling it. Nothing Bill does can convince him otherwise. The problem with this episode is that Gilbert has no reason to forbid Bill from selling the recipe, other than to be a dick. After all, the businessmen were willing to give him a cut in the profits, so what was the issue? And why would Bill need Gilbert's permission to sell it to begin with? It's not like Gilbert owned the recipe. After all, Gilbert sold the family estate without Bill's permission. So, what's the problem? Blood and Sauce falls into the same trap that a lot of Bill-centered episodes in the later seasons go into. Bill has a chance of happiness, and yet for some stupid reason, it's taken away just to emphasize what a loser he is. Number 7. Bill gathers moss. Once again, the writers go through that tired formula of Bill the lonely loser. He wants a roommate, but for some reason, Hank decides to step in and have a final say in the matter. I don't understand why he would want the final say. Bill owns the house after all. It's in his name. After going over many candidates, Hank decides to have Carl Morris as Bill's roommate. The two don't get along and things go crazy when more roommates are brought in. Hank offers to help Bill out, but on one condition. Bill must agree to never make decisions on his own life. You know, Hank, it is your fault he's in this mess to begin with. I think this episode would have been so much better if, instead of Hank insisting on having a final say in who the roommate is going to be, just tell Bill that I don't want any involvement because I'm tired of fixing your messes. And then later have Hank come and offer his help. That would have more meaning. Do the stupid, oh, you shouldn't be allowed to make decisions on your own life. Screw you, Hank. Screw you. Number 6. Church hopping. The Hills are ticked off because some newcomers are sitting in their seats at church. Instead of showing up earlier next Sunday, they decide to go to a different church. Wanting to go back to his old church while keeping his self-respect, Hank tells Reverend Stroop that he will tell everybody how great the megachurch is if she doesn't give him the assigned seats. The moral of the story, if you don't get what you want, blackmail. What I hate about church hopping is that the Hills are willing to leave their church over something as trivial as a seat. What's worse is that the episode never acknowledges that they're being petty. If I was the reverend at that church, I would be happy to lose the Hills. Number 5. Born Again on the 4th of July. Bobby is acting lazier than usual. He's too lazy to get up and get dressed to go to church, so he's left home alone. Then he uses Peggy's credit card to order a pizza. Man, Bobby's a dick in this episode. I know he can be lazy and immature, but even in the early seasons, he would have never stooped so low as to steal his mom's credit card to order a pizza. Hank has Lucky take him to his church. I have no idea what's wrong with their own church, but whatever. Bobby becomes born again and annoys everyone with his preaching. Meanwhile, the folks on Rainy Street are having a feud with Milton Street over fireworks. Bobby had joined a Christian youth group in a previous episode. He didn't act as big of a jerk in that episode before or after joining. Bobby became religious without being in your face about it. The problem was that Hank didn't like how the youth group embraced the punk lifestyle. He felt that Bobby only liked them because he thought they were cool. He knew someday his son wouldn't find them cool, and he might leave God, giving the episode a deeper meaning. In Born Again on the 4th of July, it just goes over the Bobby suddenly become religious storyline done wrong. As for the whole fireworks feud, it's stupid, moving on. Number 4. Life, a Loser's Manual. For many years, we are told about Luann's father, Hoyt. From what the characters say about him, he lives on an oil rig and refuses to come back until Hank mails him the death certificate of Leanne, his ex-wife. He's also described as being rather timid. In fact, there was one episode where Luann is talking to him on the phone. And it seems like the characters had met him, even if we haven't. Like so many build-ups, Life Eluses Manual fails to pay off. All information we know about Luann and her dad are tossed out the window. We are led to believe that Hoyt hadn't seen his daughter since she was a little girl, even though she was 17 when Leanne stabbed him with a fork. The characters never met him before, and he had been in jail the whole time. How does Luann not know her father was in jail? She was 17 when she last saw him. I refuse to ignore that fact because it's a huge part of her backstory. Plus, the way the writers have Hoyt act, I find it difficult to believe he would ever be afraid of Leanne. Leanne was just an angry drunk. Hoyt, on the other hand, is a manipulator. Plus, he looks like he could have taken her. What I also hate about this episode is the fact that Luann never confronts what her father is. I don't understand why the characters kept it a secret from her. She knows about her mother after all. Number 3. A rover runs through it. Now for another build-up that fails to pay off. The Hills spent many years trying to get to Montana before finally making it. Piggy was born there, and that's where her mom lives. In previous episodes, her mom was shown to be kind. A rover runs through it not only shows Mrs. Platter having a bad relationship with her daughter, she doesn't even look like the same person. Mrs. Platter is going to lose her property due to back taxes and celebrities moving in. After saving the family ranch, Peggy still doesn't receive any thanks from her mom. At least Cotton acknowledges when Hank does something good. A rover runs through it is just a pointless episode that leads nowhere. Number 2. Diabolic Shock. I do feel bad picking on Bill on this list. He is such a great character, but the later episodes that revolved around him tended to be very bad. Years of unhealthy eating habits finally catch up to Bill, and he becomes a diabetic. A doctor tells him that there is no hope for him to ever have a normal life, and for some reason, it means Bill has to be in a wheelchair. He befriends a guy in a wheelchair and becomes active, leading Bill to be cured of his diabetes, and he goes to the doctor and beats him up. There is one tiny problem I have with this episode. Diabetes isn't a curable disease. Once you become a diabetic, it's for life. No amount of dieting and exercise can change that. Making Bill a diabetic would have been an interesting character development for him. That would mean he would have to watch what he eats more and try to be more active. I don't expect him to be He-Man, but it actually would have been kind of interesting to see where that goes. Instead, oh look, he's cured in the end. What? Do the writers even understand diabetes? And plus, what was up with the whole wheelchair thing? He's a diabetic. His legs aren't broken. I don't know. I just don't get this episode. Number 1. Death Picks Cotton. Cotton goes on a rampage at a Japanese restaurant and accidentally swallows some fish, thus sending him to a hospital. Cotton is dying. Do Hank and Peggy tell their son of this terrible news? Nope. They send him to stay with Luann and Lucky to keep him in the dark. He's 13 years old. I think he's mature enough to know his grandpa is dying. Plus, Cotton and Bobby have always been close. Don't you think Cotton would want to be with Bobby? You know, see him one last time? Heck, I was 12 when my grandpa died. And my parents told me right away. Hank, Peggy, if you want Bobby to be mature, don't treat him like a baby. For an episode called Death Picks Cotton, it's barely about his death. It mostly focuses on Bobby's stay with Luann and Lucky. Cotton continues to treat Hank like shit to the very end, then dies. No funeral is held. We don't even learn anything about him. He just dies. A follow-up episode was made called Serves Me Right for Giving General George S. Patton the Bathroom Key. It tries to give more closure to Cotton, but fails. The writers ignore his burial plot at Arlington and decide to have Cotton cremated and flush his ashes down Patton's toilet. Hank has to perform some strange requests while his dad continues to insult him from beyond the grave. Why is Hank tolerating this? His father showed him no love before or after his death. Why would he want to fill these stupid requests? You know what I loved about Cotton? Besides being a funny character, there was way more to him. Sure, he acts like an angry redneck, but he has a softer side as well. He knows he was a bad father to Hank. He feels useless at times. He loves Bobby, and he's willing to help out when he can, and he admits when he's wrong. Sure, he's not the nicest guy in the world, but there's just more to him than being an asshole. Both of these episodes ignore his better qualities for some stupid jokes that don't go anywhere. That's why Death Picks Cotton was the worst episode of the series. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section if you agree with this list or not. Tune in next week where I have the top 10 best episodes of King of the Hill. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.